What's up, guys? Totri, Eric, Arubi here. We are here doing our way too early post-spring Big 12 power rankings. Obviously, the transfer portal, NIL, the recruiting cycle, and so much more has led to where we're at right now with the Arizona State Sun Devils, hopefully repeating as Big 12 champions. Rubus, I'm curious. Obviously, transfer portal cycle is done. Quarterbacks have moved on to the NFL. Same with running backs. And now you've got realistically a whole new class of guys here in the Big 12 trying to be the 2025 champs. So what do you got for your Big 12 way too early power rankings?
Of course, BYU is the greatest team of all time, according to everybody else's top 25 rankings. They're coming in at 1. No, I'm kidding. They are not coming in at 1. Coming in at number 1, call me biased. I don't really care. It's Arizona State University, the reigning Big 12 champions. Sure, they lost some talent to the NFL, whether it's Cam Scadaboo, who was drafted, or a couple of undrafted free agents in Leavitt, Shamari Simmons, so on and so forth. But they still return a majority of their starting defense. They return a majority of their starting offense as well. Have made some great pickups in the transfer portal and a couple of big impact freshmen that we're looking at as well. Arizona State still sitting in at number 1. At number 2 is a team that I know some people are not as high on, but they went big money spending in the transfer portal. I'm going with Texas Tech. It feels like an ASU Texas Tech year. That matchup between the two seems like it's going to be a pretty big deal when it's all said and done. At 3, I have Iowa State. I know some are a little bit lower on the runner-ups in the Big 12 from last year. Of course, they lost 2,000-yard wide receivers, but they had Chase Sowell, and I do believe that Iowa State will still be good enough to be number 3. Coming in at number 4, Baylor. We've talked a lot about Sawyer Robertson, but that team as a whole surprised a lot of people last year, led by Dave Aranda. I do believe they'll be in the top half of the Big 12. This one might be the one that's most in flux, though, out of the top 5. At number 5, I have Kansas State, Avery Johnson returning. Number 6, I do have BYU as a top 6 team in this conference, not as the better team than ASU, as some people have.
From 1 to 6 in just a span of minutes for you.
I mean, yeah, it's just the biggest drop in way too early preseason Big 12 power rankings
Kind of like the collapse that they had at the end of last
season. Yeah,
right?
They think I'm Kansas. Okay. TCU coming in at 7. What was interesting to see what Josh Hoover is able to do. Number 8, I have Utah. I think some people are higher on Utah. And I get it. I was just really high on Utah last year. I'm going to have the middle of the pack coming into this season. Number 9, I have Cincy. They should be a sneaky, fun team, not too good. At 10, I have Kansas. 11, I have Colorado after losing Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. 12, I have Houston. Should be another fun team. I don't think they'll be that great. 13, Oklahoma State. 14th, West Virginia. 15th, UCF. And 16th, the University of Arizona.
Any particular reason why Arizona is 16? Is it just that they're bad?
Lost
is it just that they're bad?
They lost top-end talent. They lost top-end talent. They still have Brent Brennan. They need to prove it.
Yeah.
They need to prove it. I'll be honest with you, Oklahoma State to U of A all feels a little interchangeable to me. West Virginia, UCF, I don't have high expectations for. Oklahoma State's just so interesting because, yeah, they lost a good amount of players too, but that might be a good thing for them considering how bad they were last year. How different is your Big 12 power rankings than mine?
We've got some similarities. I think starting at number 1, right? I've also got the Arizona State Sun Devils. You mentioned the returning production. Yes, this is a team that lost Cam Scadaboo, Shamari Simmons, Leavitt, but realistically, it's a squad that also retained just about as much talent as you could possibly retain as it relates to just college football rosters in today's day and age. Love what Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson did in spring ball. I think they're capable of really, really big things and big enough to repeat as Big 12 champions in 2025. I'm with you. I've got Texas Tech at 2. You talk about big spending they added from a lot of Power 4 universities. They added Cash Cleveland from Colorado, who's a plug-and-play starter on that offensive line. You obviously add Micah Hudson, who is going to be a big body wide receiver for the Red Raiders this season. And then you kind of look across the board, right? You're adding players from UNC, add players from Maryland, Houston, Mississippi State. The list goes on and on. It really is going to be a new team But you've got Baron Morton at starting quarterback. So I think Texas Tech is certainly going to be an improved team from last season. I'm with you. I'm pretty high on Baylor, specifically Sawyer Robertson at quarterback. I thought last year Dave Aranda was probably going to lose his job.
He was hot seat numero uno.
Yeah, we could be talking at the end of this season about a Dave Aranda extension if all things go well for the Baylor Bears. I've got them at 3. Iowa State at 4. I know some people are pretty low on the Cyclones, given the fact that they lost their 2,000-yard wide receivers from a season ago to the NFL, more specifically just to the Houston Texans, I should say. But Matt Campbell and Rocco Becht, what they're building at Iowa State is really special. You look back to last season, obviously the Big 12 title game didn't go the way that Cyclone fans thought it would go or that they wanted it to go, but overall, last year was one of the best years in program history for the Cyclones. I think they have another good year this year as well. I've got Kansas State at 5. I think this is where we probably go from tier 1 to tier 2.
I agree.
I'm not sure Kansas State offensively is going to be able to keep up with the rest of this conference, specifically Texas Tech and Arizona State. Avery Johnson at quarterback I think is fun. You're going to learn a lot about Dylan Edwards early on in this season. Obviously, the former Colorado running back played at Kansas State last year, but DJ Giddens was the pride and joy of that backfield. I am pretty high on Utah. I got them at 6. I think Kyle Whittingham still, it feels like, is one of the most underrated college football coaches in history.
Is it a Devin Dampier thing?
It's a mix of Devin Dampier and also the fact that, Utah doesn't have back-to-back bad seasons. Kyle Whittingham doesn't do that.
That's fair, but they don't usually have seasons like they had last season either. That's the thing is we were talking about that like that going into last season was there's just no way they're going to be bad, and then they were bad.
Utah plays a very specific brand of football, which I think kind of got lost last year because of the quarterback issues. You had injuries. You had Zach Wilson's little brother in there at times. But I feel confident that Kyle Whittingham and Devin Dampier are going to get Utah back on track. Again, we're talking probably still a tier 2 team at that 6th spot. I got TCU at 7. Really like Josh Hoover. He's got a cannon of an arm. BYU at 8. I'm not high on BYU. I've never been high on the Cougars. I'm not a big fan of Jake Retzloff. I love their head coach, Shatake, but overall, I think this conference is just too loaded this year for BYU to kind of repeat what they did early on last year. I've got Kansas at 9, Colorado at 10. Really interested to see what Coach Prime Sanders does without his sons there, Shiloh, boys. Travis, Shador.
His sons, Travis.
Yeah, we're throwing in Travis.
Travis
Hunter
comes in
well.
Before Shador. It goes. That's the Shador. That's the Sanders brothers power rankings.
Yeah,
it's Shiloh,
and then
Travis Hunter,
and then Shador. That's tough, man. That's tough. Very, very interested to see what the Buffs do here in 2025. Cincinnati at 11, Houston at 12. I think they're improved, but not by much. Oklahoma State at 13 is a tough one for me because a lot of national media outlets have Oklahoma State being bad again. However, if you look at the track record, kind of similar to Kyle Whittingham at Utah, they don't have bad seasons, right? Mike Gundy has led Oklahoma State to bowl eligibility after bowl eligibility pretty much for the last 2 decades. So last year, they didn't win a conference game. I think they're going to be bad this year, but I do think they are going to be better than they were last year. West Virginia at 14. I've got your Wildcats at 15.
My Wildcats?
Your Wildcats at 15.
The hell did you look at me for?
And then I've got UCF running things out at number 16. I think the worst team probably in this conference.
You know what, man? If I had U of A at 15 and UCF at 16, that wouldn't bother me either. I'm not going to lose my mind over that. Again, like I said, I think the bottom 4 interchangeable. I know you don't think Oklahoma State has as bad of a season as they did before. Yeah. I think they definitely could. What would you say is the ranking, just to round things out here, that you're most confident about will be playing out that way, and the one that you're least confident about, like, I might be wrong on this one?
That's a good one. I'd say the most confident that let's see. I'm gonna. It's biased, but I'm going to go with ASU, man.
Yeah.
I
would honestly agree. I feel pretty comfortable with that.
I've seen all these practices. I've talked to these players, these coaches we have, and it does feel like this is a team that is going to be the front runner in this conference. It's not relatively too difficult of a schedule this year. You obviously have your moments, so you have to be ready when you go on the road against teams like a Colorado or an Iowa State. But overall, I feel like ASU is in a really prime position to do something that's only been done once before, and that's repeat as Big 12 champions. The team that I'm least confident in these rankings is probably Iowa State at 4.
Wow. Okay.
I do really like Rocco Becht at quarterback and Matt Campbell, but it is going to be a big big question. Can you repeat that offensive firepower that you had without those two wide receivers? You mentioned Chase Sewell. I'm not necessarily as high on him as other folks. I think he can be a talented wide receiver, but that you're asking a lot of a kid coming from East Carolina from last year. So I would say that's probably where I'm at. Most confident in ASU, least confident in Iowa State at 4. What about yourself?
Most confident in ASU at 1 and U of A at 16. Iowa State's interesting as a fall off candidate. I'm looking at Baylor though.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if
are we all drinking the Kool-Aid too much? Are we all
a little too high on Baylor?
Yeah.
Because Sawyer, Robertson, great. Overall, they had such a great season last year. They definitely overachieved. I would say the same thing about TCU. But it does kind of feel like a consensus, like, oh yeah, Baylor's going to be good this year. And they certainly might. I'd say Baylor, and then on the opposite end, Utah at 8. I feel like that's the one that has the chance to move up the most out of everybody that I ranked. So those would be the two that I would say I'm least confident in. I would say I'm most confident in ASU. And for those who think that we're biased, go watch some shows from the last couple of years before this past season. We tell the truth about what we think about this team.
100%. It wasn't until pretty late in the season that we had ASU rising in our power rankings, at least our weekly power rankings.
We had them higher than expected, but, even going into the season, we said, hey, we think this team will be better than people imagined. We weren't sitting there saying they're going to be Big 12 champions. No. And a couple years ago when they were dog poop, they were being called dog poop, right? Yeah. So we tell it like it is with this program, and to tell it like it is, they feel pretty comfortable in that number 1 spot.
100%. Guys, head to the comments. Let us know what you think of our way too early post-spring Big 12 power rankings. Make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to PHNX Sports if you aren't already subscribed. The road to 50,000 subscribers. We're in the thick of it. Also, if you're an ASU fan or just a Big 12 fan in general, make sure you tune in 5 days a week to the PHNX Sun Devil Show, usually live about 1 p.m. But we got all things Valley Sports here on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel.